Thank you so much for joining us today. I've got Jack with me, and we're going to be talking about the role of a CFO in the digital transformation world today. But before I get into the questions that I've got for you, can you give everybody an introduction?
Happy to, Emma, and thank you for having me here. I've been looking forward to this for a while. My name is Jack McCullough. I am the president and founder of the CFO Leadership Council. Before starting the CFO Leadership Council, I was a CFO for 26 different companies, most of which were venture-backed startups in the New England area. And if you can't tell from my accent, I'm a lifetime Bostonian and really excited to be here today.
We should maybe have like a little bit of a war of my Wisconsin accent versus your Boston, and maybe have people vote in the comments of which is more notable. We'll see what they have to say.
Yours is. I'm not sure if you have an accent or not, but
certain words I do. Don't give me too much credit, but we don't need to get into that because I don't need to show my full Midwestern otherwise.
Fair enough.
But thank you for joining me. So to get us started, I gave the teaser that we're going to be talking about this idea of the role of the CFO in transformation. But I think a great starting point is to kind of look back a couple of years and look at that traditional role of the CFO when we kind of first coined the word digital transformation. And what did that look like a handful of years ago?
Yeah, and it's changed dramatically during the course of my career. In fact, it used to basically be limited to approving the budget, signing the checks, and managing the budget during the course of the project. You've undoubtedly heard of the Rock, as he was known when he was a pro wrestler, but he used to have a line when he was a pro wrestler: "Know your role and shut your mouth." And that was basically how the CFOs were treated when it came to digital type of efforts. Just sign the check and trust me, I can do this right. Obviously, that's changed quite a bit. I think also the CFO, maybe they felt the most value they could bring was to put the brakes on digital type projects. There's an expression, CFO no, as CF no, excuse me, as opposed to just CFO. And that's those CFOs who back in the day were just inclined to say no to everything. We don't want to do this. Why are we going to mess with a good system? It costs too much. They would find a million barriers to prevent companies from doing digitalization type efforts. So that was kind of the old school CFO. And suffice it to say, it has changed dramatically in recent years.
So you teed me up perfectly then for the second question of what does the role of the CFO look like in modern day transformational efforts? Because we've teased this idea that it's changed. So how has it changed and what does that role look like today?
Sure. And it's a great question. I mean, keeping in mind, of course, every situation is a little bit different. But right now, CFOs typically partner with CIOs or CTOs or whatever they might call it in a given company. And the two of them often are the ones leading the digitalization effort. They're really partnering on it, reporting to the CEO. And they have a very significant role. In the old days, when CFOs were just responsible for finance and accounting, they didn't really have the skill set to lead an effort like this. But today, they definitely do. A lot of the things they do, they understand the entire business across the entire enterprise. And that will help them make the best selection. There's also a little bit of politics involved in it because it is a significant effort, not only the dollar cost, but the labor is involved. So they need to sell it internally. And Emma, you've probably seen yourself, if the C-suite isn't behind a massive digitalization effort, and I'm not talking about something modest, but if they're not behind an entire rethinking of the digital strategy, you might as well not do it because it's going to fail before you even start. So, selling it internally is a very underrated role that CFOs have to, have. And then, some of the things that when you think of a digitalization effort, theoretically, it should be pretty easy to sell it internally because when you think about it, what else can a company do to reduce cost, create operational efficiencies, enhance employee collaboration, and also, give the company a sustainable strategic advantage? These are reasons that you should be embracing a digital strategy. And, it seems like that should be easy to sell, but yet sometimes it's really not. But, what's interesting is, again, back in the day, the CFOs sort of needed to be sold because they'd come up with reasons to not do it. Now they're actually trying to convince people these are the reasons we have to do it. So the CF no has effectively become the CF go.
Ooh, I like the switch that you made there. I appreciate that. And I had actually never heard the term CFNO before. But again, kind of reflecting on the last couple of years, that was a pretty common thing that we saw, is that the brakes were pumped by that role specifically when it was like, whoa, 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 what's the cost of staying where we're at as opposed to moving forward? And we've seen that shift now. So where I want to end our conversation is kind of taking a look at what suggestions do you have for CFOs as they're moving forward to try and lead these digital transformations and be successful with their approach moving forward.
Sure, but before we do that, can I just give a little story here?
Of course.
So yeah, you mentioned you never heard of the CFNO, and what you're therefore probably don't know. I invented the phrase back in the early 1980s. So I was actually, it was my first non-fast food job. I was an accounting intern at a local hospital, and the CFO, he was a decent guy, but he just said no to everything. I mean, just anything, changing brands of coffee, taking a different position on revenue recognition, everything was no, no, no. So I started calling him the CFNO behind his back. And then one day he called me into the office and he said, I understand you've been calling me the CFNO behind my back. And, I'm thinking, geez, my parents are going to kill me. This was my first job. I'm fired 6 weeks into it and my career's over. And he just said, I just want to let you know, it's the finest compliment I've ever gotten. Keep up the good work. And I was like, what the heck was that all about? So anyway, I found out later, he thought I was saying it's CFNO, KNOW. And that was my way of praising his knowledge and expertise on financial functions. So you never know where these things might go.
Thank you for sharing this story. I appreciate that. I was giggling off screen, and that is a nice way. Then he thinks it's great, and you're able to kind of coin a new term and move forward with it. So can you share then what tips you have for CFOs that are leading digital transformations today?
Sure. And the one thing, I think that's imperative is paramount even. Think cross-functionally. Don't just think, how is this going to impact finance and accounting? Today, CFOs are great. They're an integral part of the executive suite. And, unless you're in that 1 out of 100 companies where the CEO is the former CFO, very likely you're the only financial expert across the C-suite. So I would say, think cross-functionally across the entire enterprise, and then build alliances. Again, it's not going to work if it's just you and the CIO. We're just going to do this. Boom. That's a recipe for disaster. Build alliances, get sales, get marketing, get your customer support team involved. Have them understand why this is going to benefit them and their organizations, in addition to benefiting the entire company. Have them take a little bit ownership in it. Yes, I want this. This is going to help me. Thank you for doing it. And also, build alliances at the top too. Not only the president, which is fairly obvious since you typically report to her or him, but also at the board level. Believe it or not, a lot of companies' boards need to buy into this sort of thing. So I would say, play the political game, get everybody and all of the critical stakeholders on your side. And then, at the risk of stating the obvious, Emma, and you actually inspired this answer, is once you've made the decision to do it and you recognize the need to do it. Stop kicking the can down the road. And in fact, when I said you inspired me, I saw your video on social media where you were sort of kicking the need for a digital makeover, and you were, you were literally kicking it in this video.
I was, yeah. And I think those ideas that you're talking about, though, specifically thinking cross-functionally, is such a huge advantage for not only CFOs, but any executive that's trying to drive or lead a digital transformation, because it can't happen in a silo. You can't change the company strictly in finance or strictly in operations, or even lead it only with IT. You have to change. I mean, if you want to truly digitally transform, it has to be a strategic initiative. And so, when I talk about that definition of the buzz term of digital transformation, I use that term strategic initiative to get to this idea of it being a cross-functional vision and execution plan that's not limited to one department alone.
Yeah, that's the biggest mistake, I think. And, they're getting away from it, but they're only thinking about it through their own lens. You do need somebody who actually can understand the entire enterprise. And more times than not, that person is the CFO in the current environment. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. I think who is the first woman to sail across the Atlantic?
Oh, that one I don't know off the top of my head.
Maybe it was the Pacific, but anyway, she had a saying: the best way to do something is to do something. And I can't believe I'm forgetting her name, but
we'll find it and we'll put it in the comments. Don't worry. That's what Google is for, right?
There you go. Kind of, take that approach. Don't just sit around and wait for something to happen and wait for the perfect moment. Because you know what? There isn't a perfect moment. You're gonna be retired, and your replacement is going to find the perfect moment, which might be the day after you leave. But yeah, it's cross-functional. You need to understand if you're in a type of company that has a manufacturing plant, get them excited about it, how this is going to improve their lives, the quality of their work, and make a better product. Get customer support involved. Have sales understand why this is going to be better for their customer relationships. If everybody's involved, you've really got a good chance of making it. And you know better than most, Emma, most digital transformations fail.
They do.
Yeah.
And if you can focus on doing the right things from a change management perspective, building that buy-in and that kind of collective drive towards your vision, you're going to automatically start off eons above everybody who's trying to kind of bulldoze it through and make it happen without taking those necessary steps on the front end.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes a whole lot of sense. So, but yeah, it's funny that it's all about politics and relationships, right? Even when you're talking about technology, it always gets back to the people in the team.
Oh, you're speaking my language. But thank you so much for joining me for the conversation, Jack. And if you're not already, follow him on LinkedIn as well as the CFO Leadership Council. Because they do a ton of educational content for folks in CFO role, as well as people that are looking to develop into that role. So make sure that you check them out and reach out to either one of us if you've got any questions. But thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks, Emma.
If you're looking for expert tips on how to get started with your transformation or looking to hone in on your approach, make sure that you subscribe to our channel to catch our weekly Digital Transformation Talk series, where we interview experts from around the world on how to make it happen.